Items, and we're in discussion of sales tax. This is the issue that had come before the council to approve the half-cent sales tax going forward, and the council had acted to remand it to the retreat for further discussion, so that's why that is on the agenda.
Included in the packet is a letter from the rate and fee committee to the council.
Behind 3, before 4.
There you go.
I figured out the system. I finally figured out the system. Only took me through life, but you know, a little bit slow, but that's all right. Okay. So that's where it is. And this also includes the recommendations from the GAP committee, so-called GAP committee. All of the ordinance actually calls for a different committee to do a similar prioritization.
And act as the oversight. From the ordinance, the committee, it would be a 7-member committee to act as the oversight committee.
Have we made any gap committee we did or not?
Well, they call themselves a GAP committee, I think.
Did we actually?
I saw an ordinance that y'all voted on that said that you would formulate that gap committee by each council person's election of a person to be in on that committee through that council person's term.
I thought it was rate and fee.
Maybe it was rate and fee.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of citizens.
But I thought it was a gap too.
But I think the gap fee, the gap committee was, they were trying to keep them,
They're just a bunch of citizens.
a bunch of citizens unofficial, because that way they can actually meet and talk without being an unofficial.
Now, unfortunately, they use the same title.
But
They use the same title. In other words, on the history of
Because they're using
meetings,
Guthrie
they
rate
say
and
March 6th, the Guthrie Area Project GAP Committee, and of course, we use that same terminology in the ordinance. 7-member Guthrie Area Project Oversight Committee.
where's that in the ordinance?
A, bottom of the first page.
3A.
3A.
Yeah.
Which page are we on now?
The ordinance itself.
The first page.
So that was a little.
That's where it says we'll establish that, but we haven't actually done that yet.
Correct.
So, yeah,
But-
it keeps in the back.
But on the history of the committee meeting from the great,
It's not 7 members either.
no.
That's the way it started.
See, that's what I don't understand, because it shows it as a Guthrie Area Projects Committee, which was the gap.
So they were the initial group.
But they came up with a prioritization of specific projects. From a personal standpoint, I think that sunsetting it is an excellent idea. I think having specific outcomes that you can use to sell this idea to the community to increase the sales tax is an excellent thing. I don't know that this is the priority per se of projects that we, if we want to use this as a, for lack of a better word, marketing and educating the public. Here's what you can expect from your half-cent sales tax increase. These are the things, and that member group put it in priority. I don't know that I necessarily agree or disagree with the priority, but that's what's in front of me. And when I voted to have more dialogue about it, I was confused as to what is our strategy for making the sales tax a successful venture. How do we market it? How do we convince the public that this is worth that investment? And I think those two elements, sunsetting and having specific outcomes that could be expected, are both very good things to sell that half-a-cent sales tax to the community. I I didn't know if these costs were specific. And I found out, Serena told me that these were not, they were kind of guesses in some instances, in other instances not. I think personally that could lead us down a road of saying, oh, I'm sorry, something that we thought was going to be $100,000 is now $200,000, and oh, by the way, we're not going to be able to do it. And then our credibility goes down the tube again. Not again, I'm sorry. Our credibility goes down the tube. And so that's, when I voted to table up for more discussion, that was part of my primary thought process. And I was hoping we could come together here for more dialogue on that. John?
I totally agree on that, and one of the reasons I postponed it myself was that I felt like the council had to be on the same page with this deal. If we have new folks who don't really know it, they're not going to be bought into it, they're not going to promote it, they might even fight against it, so we have to bring the new folks in. Another thing was, I talked to someone at the schools specifically about how they did it, and what this person said was they got a professional. I don't know if you knew, they got somebody who fundraised for them. They ended up raising $66,000 approximately for a professional to poll, to do the marketing plan, to put out materials and stuff like that. They had to raise a lot of money, and they had a pro, and that's why they were able to pass this thing after 10 years of not passing anything, even after multiple tries. Guthrie is a place where we have to be strategic in pushing for something, and I reiterate what Steve said, we've got to have a plan. Now, I'd like to see a plan in place somehow that says this is how we're going to go forward with this. The city has to be careful because we cannot be the ones promoting it, right? As a city, we got to be real careful how we do that. But in talking to him, he basically said what we should do, his recommendation was to do some polling beforehand. There are companies like Age Strategies who could do some polling to help prioritize these things. Because what happened is you got this committee, a group of, I don't know how many, was it a dozen folks originally, I got a dozen names. Great, but does this sell to the community? What do they want? So for example, you got really high up here, a ladder truck for the fire department. That's great. However, is that what the public, would they perceive this as a big deal or not? If it is, hey, let's make sure we promote that when we talk about, hey, talk about that ladder truck because everybody loves it, right? Or, oh my gosh, people don't really like the ladder truck, let's not point that out. Does that make sense? But that's a marketing thing, and I think we should do some polling to figure out what Guthrie wants. Because here's the problem. Once we throw a date down, we're in campaign mode, and we cannot use public dollars to poll and investigate what people want and prioritize, because now it's a campaign. We set a date, that day, it's a campaign, and you have to use private funding. And I don't know if anybody's going to go around and raise $60-some thousand so we can do a nice little campaign. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have to rely on grassroots. We're going to have to rely on citizens, putting them in their own money for this. But I think it'd be important for the city for us to figure out what would the residents of Guthrie prioritize when it comes to any of these items or other items. And also, is a half-cent what they want? I know that last year we did that 1 cent. I was critical, when I was on the rate and fee committee, I was critical because that 1 cent would have put us over anywhere we had never been before. And I had a lot of people upset with us because we had a high sales tax. At that point, adding even more on top of that so it'd be higher than it was, people would not go for that. So is half-cent sellable? If it is, great, but we should get some input and some evidence from the citizens to see if half-cent is a good deal. Maybe go 1/4 cent. Maybe we can even get to a 3/4 cent. But I think we need data. We need to prioritize these things. We need some data. And I think maybe we could put, a little money into polling our citizens to figure out some strategies before we say, hey, this is a campaign.
This unofficial committee was 17 people. Looks like a pretty good cross-section of our town. 17 people, and they came back with this recommendation to the city council. And the city council went forward with this ordinance that was published, I believe, most of this has been addressed and vetted publicly.
If only 30 people had to vote, I would agree with you. But, no, a lot of people have, that's why they do polling. I mean, if campaigns elections was just about throwing your name in the hat and you can win the thing based on your campaign committee, then hey, it would be a different deal. But campaigns actually do polling. They actually go on the street and then knock on doors. You have to have a plan. Guthrie is not, we're not Edmond. If we're Edmond, you throw something up there, have some good ideas, it'll pass. Guthrie, we don't have that history of just passing stuff to pass stuff. We found, what I found, you gotta have a profession, some professional background in this, and at least we can do some polling to verify this what people, rather than what 17 people want, which I don't disagree. I mean, so these are some good items, and there's some good people here, but that's not everybody.
You voted for this ordinance, so I'm not sure.
I didn't vote for this. Well, yeah, I voted for the ordinance, but I don't necessarily happy with the strategy, or lack thereof.
See, and that's, the reason I wanted to table it is because I think that half cent's not enough, quite frankly. And I know that it failed last time, and I think it failed miserably last time because I don't think it was properly, again, just in my opinion, put out there and where that money was actually going. If you're gonna use a half penny for raises, tell us what those people are currently making and what we're increasing them to publicly. Throw it out there. I think that if the townspeople saw that, wow, this person over here is making $8.50 an hour, they need $1 raise, obviously. Okay, then and it went on and on and on like that. I think it would have stood a lot better chance of potentially passing than just miserably failing. It's kind of, you know, and then the rest of it was for infrastructure. Now, none of it's for any of that. So, you know, we have a 1 cent tax 6 months ago that fails, and now we have a whole new agenda of where a half cent's going.
I think that the part of the issue was that the public wanted things that addressed safety, quality of life, and health, and that what we had
And they wanted
requested
sunset.
earlier, yeah, and they wanted a sunset. And what we had tried earlier to pass did not address the things that the public wanted. So now this was formed and they came up with the safety, the quality of life, the health type issues. This being the consensus of the people that were a smattering of the community. So I thought.
Well, I guess that's another.
Path.
That's another question I have is, and I know most of these 17 people and respect all of them. So, okay, so they represent the entire community. What polling was done on their behalf as far as door knocking and everything else to find out if those are all the issues that need to be handled within a tax?
And this is where I step in and say the same thing, is that why I table this is because that's what I was, again, these people are a good cross-section of our town, but it is not exactly what everybody else is seeing and what I'm hearing from other people in town. And I think that if we had done anything with this, and as John is saying, we cannot, once we went into campaign mode, we could not poll, we could not hire professionals, we could not find out exactly and get this sold to campaign for it correctly to get this thing passed. Is a half cent enough? Is something, once we go through the budget, can we find money there, or is it just so tight that we do need maybe a 3/4 cent, or even though the cent is probably a little out of bounds, but from last time. But this had to be looked at a little closer. If we hadn't have done what we did, I feel, then we'd be stuck, and I'm afraid it would just go down in flames like it did last time.
From what I remember, we did this ordinance to do all these things that we were recommended to do, and there was a agreement that we would need to do a big yes campaign on this. But as far as I remember and everything, this was all vetted and completely to the point of all we're doing is picking a date to put on the calendar and then starting the yes campaign. That is all we were doing.
Well, you have two problems with this. There's these guys over here who didn't vote for this. Number two is, I thought when you guys put a date for July, initial is June, I thought that was silly when we have a bond issue coming right up. Doesn't strategically make sense. So I didn't agree with that. I wasn't at that conversation because I was out of town. So you know, boo on me, but I wasn't for such a close date. So I have some criticisms of this. Yes, I'd love to see us do all these things. I wish we had done this years ago. But I think we got to do it the right way, and that's what I'm saying, is do it the right way and do it strategically. I would love to see these 17 people come to us and say, how are you going to get the vote out? You know, what's your plan to do that? I would feel a lot more comfortable with this, knowing that these guys, not only do they have good ideas, but they have ideas on how to, are they going to knock on doors? Because a lot of times we do this, and they just throw on the ballot, and not necessarily these guys, but like school bond issues, I've heard this multiple times. They said, well, they were meaning to get out, they got a few signs out, but they had plans to do things. They didn't do any of it because their life got busy. Well, yeah, of course it went down in flames because we didn't do a very good job at outreach on the school side, right? Well, we have to. Guthrie doesn't just vote for stuff just to vote for stuff because the no campaign gets organized. We need the yes campaign to get organized, and that's my worry. If we had passed stuff multiple times before, I wouldn't worry about it, but we struggle in passing things. So we need to be strategic. I'd love to see their plan on how they're going to go. Are they really going to commit to this? How are they going to get people involved?
Who is the they?
Well, the GAP committee came up with this initial idea. Well, they're citizens, which is awesome.
They came up with a listing of projects that were quality of life, safety related.
Well, and
They didn't come up with a plan for how do we get our best chance for this. The sales tax pass. That's the yes campaign that Z was talking about. So who is the yes campaign?
Great question.
Who spearheads that? Who's
Good question.
the one?
I don't think that that's been addressed, Steve, and I think that this committee was selected or appointed or whatever to
They just naturally came together.
represent what they felt like was the consensus of why people had always put it down before. This is what they thought the citizenry wanted. We didn't ask them to come up with how.
Well, maybe we should ask them.
let's talk about this a minute, because and I know most of us in here probably did. I stuck real close with Dr. Simpson and the whole school board thing as it was going on, been to just about all the meetings, the whole deal. And if we're going to do a yes campaign, and we voted this as a tax on the ballot for November, let's say, and we did that a month ago, we cannot bring in a professional marketing company to go out and door-to-door poll and to find out what the citizens will really buy off on versus what they won't buy off on to be able to have a yes campaign in the first place. Can't do it. So that's all I'm saying on it. Now, a couple of things that, I was under, who funds the trolley?
It's ODOT and contracts.
Yeah, and they're writing off,
And they're funded, what I understand, pretty decent right at this point.
it's being cut.
No.
They lost
Is it cut?
Yeah.
They lost it.
Is it cut by 350 grand?
You got a significant
I
cut.
believe
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Then that might be a legitimate item. And it just very well may be.
And every other community that has a transit system, the community helps fund their transit system. Stillwater does, Edmond pays for it completely, it's free rides. Oklahoma City, anybody that has a transit system supplements it with some sort of help from the community. We're the only ones that don't.
Yeah, I would just like, my point, we need professional help in some way before we do a campaign. At least prioritize, figure out what we want and how, because prioritization is also helping with us with marketing. What do we showcase? What do we tell people and help these guys? And the other thing is, I think if we never charge these guys to do anything but planning, maybe they can get together and tell us how to do a campaign, or what would they do for a campaign? Because right now, I feel like we're going to throw something on the ballot like we usually do.
What you don't,
Waste
what you're
10
missing
grand.
is we didn't charge these guys to do anything. They came together naturally. Did you appoint anybody to this? I didn't.
No.
That's what I'm saying. These people just came together and did this for us. This is our community talking to us. And they're telling us that they want us to go forward with a half-cent sales tax for these things. And we're kicking the can. Like
I don't know if the dance meeting.
It makes it sound like we don't want to do this. I would love to do this, but unless I see a plan and I see something where there's some prioritization, we need some professional help. You don't just go out there, unless you're city council, if you go to state rep or above, you have a professional help you typically.
Well, let's just ask.
This is an issue where we're at a place where we struggle in passing things. So I think we need some kind of help.
Well, we've got a lot of help, we've got momentum on our side. Look at that name list again. Those are the same people that pushed the school bond. A lot of those are the same people. They've helped this thing happen for the school. We're losing that momentum that we had by delaying it further.
I've seen a few of these people with the school bond by not all means near the majority. But let's go back to the tax that failed in the fall. How does this snapshot right here of the half cent fit into that picture?
This is defined the way the public says they want it defined, and it has a sunset the way they want it defined. We are answering the mail. They told us what they wanted. We're giving them what they want, except we're not putting it on the ballot. That's all we're asking them to do at this point. The people have told us what they want.
You keep saying the people, there's 17 people who are, if you look at these names,
Well, where did these
I know most of these
17
people
get
are
their
really
ideas from?
active.
I don't
Real
know.
active.
It was a closed door meeting, is what I know.
A real active 17 people in the committee doesn't represent the majority of the people who vote necessarily.
Well, we may have somebody in the room that can answer some of that.
Chris?
Put Chris in the spotlight here.
I'm going to turn this off real quick.
Can you educate us a little bit about what this GAP committee process was and how you came about these projects?
Like most, you guys have touched on a lot of it. Most of it was after it failed, we got a lot of feedback. The main thing was sunset clause. And a lot of it was salaries not knowing where, if the street department was going to get this X amount, firefighters going to get this much. And so we took that information, we came together, we talked about what do we need to help ourselves get better with quality of life and all the stuff that we talked about. So this was our plan, and we haven't done anything in 10, 15, 20 years to address capital improvements. I know our budget doesn't ask for it, so how do you go about it? That's how we came up with a 35 list of things that we thought would be good. We took that 35 and narrowed it down to what you see in front of you. We took the fiscal year 13-14 of how much we made that year, hoping we could at least stay there. That's where those estimates came in at.
Estimates of how much money?
How much? Yeah, exactly.
Chris, as a question, you obviously are in the public. Were you hearing comments that made you all focus on certain things? I mean, I guess they're asking, what did you use to come up with your ideas from the public?
Well, when we had it last November, public safety was big of the fire engine, not just public safety, but for, we need one for safety purposes. Baseball or facilities for that. There's a lot of stuff we talked about, like what's the underground water system splash pad.
Oh,
And it was way too much maintenance. And so it was well thought out, well talked about, and then we came together what projects need to have to happen. And the sunset was a big part of that too.
So I guess I'm kind of assuming that basically these are people that are out and about every day. These are community people that aren't enclosed inside businesses in their homes. These are people that hear what public comment is.
A good part
And a lot
of
of it was drawn from that, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, this was our idea. If you have a better idea, all for it. So, but that's what.
So what happened to the, just out of curiosity, what happened to the pay raises? As part of a percentage of the tax?
Honestly,
In your meetings?
Honestly, we never in our meeting, GAP meeting, we didn't talk about
Never
pay
did.
raises. Never. This was capital improvements. Capital improvements.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I think that we decided as a council, or at least in meetings, that salaries would not be addressed in any future tax increases because there was so much negative comment about that.
So and that's where confusion lies. I'm not saying I can't be swayed on it whatsoever, as far as my personal opinion, but
No, this was
Okay, if we
public.
put out a tax for a penny in the fall that had to have a half cent based on capital improvement and had to have a half cent for for increases, wage increases, now all of a sudden it's not a concern?
Well, no.
You know, I'm confused as hell
In
with
the
that.
town hall meeting that we had, there was so much, and correct me if I'm wrong, negative comment about anything, any money that we raised going towards salaries, which I personally don't understand, because as far as I'm concerned, safety issues are way up there, and we need the personnel to provide the safety issues.
The
But
comments we
that was
heard-
the one that,
The comments we heard on it, and this is coming from down low, was they were worried that it was all gonna go to administrative salaries.
Yeah, it was
That
all
was the
about
concern,
Serena.
it wasn't
The
defined.
rumor was that Serena was getting all of it.
Yes,
and she
yes.
wasn't getting.
Well, she
wasn't getting
Yeah.
And see, so that's a different reason to not have it on the tax again, in
No,
my
but,
opinion.
well, and basically, people that aren't well-informed form opinions that are based on gossip, they're not based on reality. And someone asked a question at the town hall meeting, Serena, are you getting a raise? You know, and she was like, what?
How much of that you get?
Yeah,
Something
and
like
it
that.
had nothing to do with the issue at hand, but because it was mentioned and brought forward like that, I think that some negative comment kind of went crazy over that.
And that's
So,
what
and
it
again,
What
what
strengthens the point of having it properly PR'd and properly
Yes.
spun,
You know,
having it proper,
yes.
because right there, that is exactly what you
Exactly.
said,
And-
with the lack of knowledge of a lot of the voting public need to be, you know.
And I guarantee you, they'll come up with a conspiracy on this too, you know, somehow they'll spin it in a way that's negative.
But
Well-
there's,
We gotta have it, that's what
But
we have
at
to
least that
advance.
was, that was not designed by the city council, it was designed by citizens.
With very rough estimates.
it's a very rough estimate. When you do these taxes, you can't do a rough estimate. When you're breaking it out by line item, you gotta provide.
Well, actually, I believe that those estimates have been looked at and they're pretty close. But-
Again,
I mean, how much have we looked at
And
these
They
numbers?
they are in fact estimates.
Maxine made a statement earlier that she doesn't have enough manpower or equipment to get real quality of life, which is like our lakes built up like they should be, okay, done whatsoever. Okay, if that was laid out, we're sitting here looking for we've got an interim city manager, we've got a clerk and a treasurer in one position, which in my opinion should be two, or and by most counts should be two. Okay, we can't afford that because we can't afford to bring these people on. What if we listed it out, line by line by line? Worker bees, you know, they're at $9 an hour, we're gonna pay them $10.50 an hour so that they can have a decent quality of life. We're gonna hire 5, blah, 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 and break it all up. Do you not think that the public would buy off on that?
I think the public, seeing concrete things happen, whether that be a dog park or whether that be what's the pad?
Splash pad.
Or
A new fire
or
truck.
a new fire truck. I think the public sees that and sees that their sales tax went up and they got this in return. I think they conceptualize that much easier than seeing a position added for salary
I
increase.
agree.
Unfortunately, I'm not agreeing,
I hear
but I
you.
think that's our reality.
I don't think they're
And I
gonna
think
read the
that's
list
a
of
part
employees.
of how
And
we
they may
market.
not.
Tangible, there's
I
gonna
think
have
that's
to be
how-
I
something
think
tangible
the concept,
in
Steve, is
this
correct, you
visual.
are absolutely
I mean,
correct.
again, I'm not necessarily saying it's right or wrong, I think that's our reality, folks. And if we're gonna want to pass a sales tax that moves us in some way forward, then we have to have that concreteness of saying, this is what we will give you in return for
And the
for
truth
passing
is,
this out.
if we get the safety and quality of life taken care of in the additional of the sales tax, then the monies that we might have been forced to use for a fire truck or whatever can therefore maybe be funneled or changed into something like additional equipment or.
Because currently we spend about $180,000 on lease purchases on capital improvement, or, what I'm trying to say, vehicles, that kind of thing. So if the sales tax were to go forward and pass, then that money can be shifted and be freed up to go to salaries or something. I mean, that was,
Right.
you
That
know.
was one
Well, the
thing.
other problem we ran into, and Steve, you mentioned it a lot, sunset. You cannot fund salaries and benefits on a
Exactly.
You know, when that came up,
Get yourself in trouble.
in that same meeting.
Because then you're gonna have to fire somebody in 5 years.
And I think that same one where they accused Serena of getting raised, that same question got asked, and I asked the lady, okay, when this tax runs out in 5 years, you guys don't renew it, am I just supposed to lay these guys off and say thanks, see ya?
Right.
Well, see, you're right, and that's a damn good point on the sunset side of it. But what I heard when I was pounding doors campaigning on it is that they didn't see where the money was going. They had no breakdown of where the money was going. All they knew is a half penny was going towards salaries and a half penny was going towards infrastructure.
But now
And they
we do
knew
have-
nothing else.
I think-
Now we do have a list of where it's going.
We do a list, but
But
you know what?
I hear you, but.
This doesn't go knock on doors. This is a list, and you gotta crystallize it in people's minds. You do that through a campaign, you do it through a plan. And you don't just go through it on newspaper and people, oh my gosh, they have to see these things or have conversations with people. You've gotta have some kind of plan, and I'm a little worried that we're just gonna throw this on the ballot.
Larry, wait. No,
Hang on just one second. I'm gonna throw cold water on this whole mess. I can tell you right now, there are 2 people in this county that's gonna get out and slam us. No matter whether we do it, and you know who the 2 people are.
Oh, yeah.
It's Charlie Meadows, it's Jason Murphy.
And they'll write about it. It'll be in the
And
paper.
Jason's already writing about it right now. He's already talking to me about it.
Yeah.
And he said he's planning on, he said, I'm not gonna let you all vote anything, period.
Okay.
So I don't wanna throw cold water.
That's why you have to have
on
yes
that right now.
campaigns.
Well,
Somebody
We can't be afraid of 2 guys just to
Be afraid of
derail us from trying to put together a comprehensive funding structure, because that's really what this is.
I know.
We just need to know, we just need to make sure what we fund is right. That's what we need to
Well, we
make
gotta
sure.
we gotta get the funds first, and then I think it's
Yeah,
all part of
before you
the
do
process.
anything about
Larry,
it.
we're gonna dive in on this one.
Thank you. Kim, what's the deadline for putting this matter on the fall ballot?
Depends on what part of the
It depends on which one, yeah. Are you talking about in November?
One in fall, I guess September or whatever, you know, we vote, in my home state, we vote twice a year. That's usually not.
August
Yeah.
14th is July
So
9th.
what is the best time where most folks come out
Well,
to vote?
November. November? No, there's not a general.
There's no general this year.
So if we chose November 10th, then we'd have to have a resolution approved by September 10th.
Okay. Comment. First of all, I don't, if I'm gonna pay more, I don't want it to go to salaries. I wanna see what am I gonna get. I want my family to go to a splash pad. I wanna make certain that my community is covered, protected, safety-wise. I wanna see what I'm gonna get. And when part of that money goes to pay Joe Schmo over here, somebody who is our employee. However, I don't get a benefit off that. So I don't think I'm gonna vote for that. So I think that what I hear is that it should not go to salaries. Secondly, to see how representative these are, these items here. Might I suggest we put together a survey that goes on SurveyMonkey that's free. Anybody can do it from any computer. We can put out in specific places paper ballots, and we take those and see how representative that is to this.
I told that to Serena, and Serena was totally against doing that.
Okay.
By the way, just so you know.
Well, that's all right.
I know she's not here
That's
anymore,
all right.
but
That's all right.
she had reasons for that.
We got beat up on survey monkey last year. I mean, but a lot of that was probably more people focusing on the salaries. more
How
than
did
anything.
you get beat up?
Just, it doesn't make any sense what we're talking about. And we were talking about improvements to, I will tell you, probably the strategy for everything was not going after a highly active election, going after kind of a slower election with lower voter turnout. And the strategy was kind of saying a little bit of doom and gloom, what we don't have and everything like that. Whereas this group is strongly focusing on bringing Guthrie into a new realm of positive, bright, shiny things. I will, just one last comment, the question that not a whole lot of people understood was why we didn't focus on what exact projects were being done is because we can't in a sales tax election. In a bond, you list them out exactly. But we asked Mustang or Yukon how they were doing that, and they basically said that committee that comes up with the ideas holds the council's feet to the fire and makes them vote on it, because that's what they pretty much sold it on. So the Survey Monkey thing was
In
negative.
Survey Monkey, you say, you can compile different surveys. You can have an opinion survey, you can have rank 1, 2, 3, 4.
And ranking would be good.
You can rank everything, then you find, and then you just hit one button, and it prioritizes all those things by how, which one got the most votes, basically. And it's not give me your opinion. It's rate these and see how what we get this to this.
And our survey was probably more, I think one of the questions honestly was, if this election does not pass, which of these services would you be most upset about losing? And that's kind of why I say it was more focused in a negative connotation more than a positive.
So what are you for? If we do this, what do you want to get? And then you see how that compares, and maybe I think this is a very extensive list, actually. So maybe you pare that down to 5 things, and then perhaps we create a restricted fund. This is what this is going to go to. Similar, like you said, with the 0.5% goes to wages, half goes to, instead of saying half goes to infrastructure, then say this is going to go to A, and yet walk that fine line that you were talking about being too specific, and put that together real fast so we can get some idea back so we can meet your deadline. And then that gives us a better idea of what the citizens think instead of just these 17 people.
Be better.
And again, without, what do you think? No opinions, because I've been there before. Your cemetery is the worst cemetery on the planet. That kind of thing. We don't want that. Rank these. Here they are, rank them. And then whatever that happens, run with it.
Now, okay, one thing that mine worries about too is strategy. So, Chris is here in the room, and I know that you guys just came up with the idea. It seems like you guys are real active folks. Is it possible to go back and say, look, can we figure out how we would actually get this out in the public? How would we promote this? Because see, our hands are somewhat tied. Like, if I say something, I got to say, I'm not speaking for the council. And to say, like, Larry can't say anything. I mean, Larry cannot go out there in a commercial, go vote for this, right? And so he can say vote, but not vote yes or no.
If the city has taken a position on this, you should be speaking for it.
The city can't go and...
No, we can't.
But if someone does it.
We can't, because we even put together a GTV.
These guys can't do that.
No, they can't.
We can inform of
But
the
if
issue.
someone asks you a
get
question-
off the vote.
Then I would say, I'm not speaking for the council because of our ethics thing.
See, there you go. You've already made a positive step today.
But my point is, these guys, there's a lot of hands tied here. We have to have, that's why it's important to have this citizens group to help figure out, and this is exactly what the school did. They got a citizens group to try to get out the vote. And I feel better if I mean, you guys are active, you care about this. I would love for Chris to go back to these guys and say, look, what they're worried about is getting it out. How do we get out the vote? And these guys would be perfect in figuring out, well, how do we do that? Can we commit ourselves to going out and organizing a campaign around this? And it would take you guys to take the lead on that. I mean, we can help, but we got to be careful.
I think Superintendent Simpson was able to have some informative sessions as well without saying yes or no.
It was an education process, and then it was vote. He couldn't say vote yes.
Right.
But he could say vote,
Just
and
vote.
he could educate, and that's,
And answer questions.
Part of this.
But Chris, do you think that would be feasible to do? Have you go back and...
Absolutely.
John,
We need
that was the intent for
Yeah.
that group, is to be the group to the ambassadors. if you
I was
will.
getting the feedback that
They
that
are-
wasn't what they're trying to do,
They are-
so we
they
gotta
are-
get them.
Right.
I don't really feel comfortable with this unless I feel like you guys could go and say, hey, we wanna get out the vote because we wanna have this
I
happen.
think they're on the team.
Yeah.
I think they're on the team, Jeff?
And I'm sorry, and that's why it's an informal, this group is not a council appointed, they're an informal
Right.
group. And that's exactly why, so they can go out and say those things. And they're just waiting for direction from this council to do
Yeah,
that.
because we came up with it, so we better go out.
Can you answer this, Chris, how many's on this committee that was on the school board committee? The school board got behind on this.
It's been several months since we've had this meeting. A good part of them, the ones that I know right off the top of my head were a good part of the school build.
Right, so we know, so.
It's outside that.
About 4 or 5 names on there.
Yeah.
There's at least, yeah, I was going to say,
They're
there's 4 or
active.
5 names that were involved in getting the school bond passed. So that's the reason why I was asking, because I thought, well, after talking with several of them, and I talked to Dr. Simpson as well, and I know probably most everybody in here has, and he says now's the time to strike on this deal, because he said, you guys need to move it now. He said, don't drag this along, he said, or it'll kill you.
And Simpson?
Well, you're gonna
Yes.
lose it, yeah,
Well,
he said you'll lose it.
he
Simpson's
said-
also the one that told me we need a professional poller to poll.
Well, I know.
That was his
But here's the
recommendation
problem.
before we
Do we wanna
start.
Do we want to spend $66,000?
No, that's for a whole campaign, and that's for the whole county. He said just polling will
Well,
cost
not
a
for the
fraction
whole
of
county,
that.
that was just the school districts.
Well, the whole school was a little bigger than Guthrie.
Right, it's a
But
lot
he
bigger.
says just poll and do it before you set a date, because that way you can just say, we're trying to get information out and to find out what citizens prioritize. He said, that's the real key is the poll. And they did that throughout their campaign. He goes, if I can tell you anything, you need to poll before, and then once you have some information and allocate it, then you set a date, and then you move forward. And that way, because once you say it's a campaign, you can't use city money, you can't use a penny, you get in trouble for that. So that's why I was pushing for, and that's why I deferred, because I had a conversation with, I didn't want to say it was Simpson, but it was Mike Simpson who told me we did it because of a pro. That's how we won this thing, through a pro. You need somebody to professionally do surveying for you. And it might cost you about $8,000 to $10,000. But he says it's worth its weight in gold. That way you prioritize, you find out what the citizens of Guthrie want to do.
Can we get a definitive on
What?
how much it would cost?
Oh, yeah, we could talk, there's different companies that do it. The AH Strategies did theirs. We could just go ask for a quote from them. Sure, we can do
They know
that.
our community, obviously,
Yeah.
since they work.
Well, and they would know who the curmudgeons are, the people who are critical of, because there's people you go out to and we, yeah. So they have that information.
Well, that was the key on the school bonds.
Okay, so.
Exactly.
And so there's a potential resource right there,
Yeah.
ready-made for us.
Exactly.
And we can get a better idea of what our cost would actually be.
I'd feel so much better if we did that.
Your suggestion was somewhat of a polling opportunity, depending upon how many people responded.
But this was them going out and calling, and also they could ask what they think of 0.5%.
Okay, why do we have to do that before we decide?
Because that's city money, but once you set a date, it's campaign money, and now you can't allocate, we get in trouble. The city can't spend money on a
Is
campaign.
that true, Kim?
Well, that's what we were just talking about. We were gonna have to look.
Okay, all right. We need a clarification on that.
I think the private side might have to pay for the polling beforehand.
Yeah, I don't think.
Well, not if we're just trying to figure out what people want in our town, I don't think they have
I
to.
don't know, let's get a clarification on that.
Only if we set a date. If we set a date, now it's campaign.
Okay,
we have to prep it.
let's get a clarification on that regardless, okay? Z, you were trying to jump in here.
Yeah, I want to be clear, the code of ethics piece really bothers me that that's not understood. Because number 13 is about advocacy, and it says, members shall represent the official policies or positions of the city council. So if this is our position, we will do it. Or to the best of their ability, when designated as a delegate for that purpose. And it goes on to tell you, if you're presenting your personal opinion, you separate yourself. So if you're presenting this is this council's decision to go for this sales tax, you shall present the council's view on it.
Oh, you're talking about being able to.
Yes, you shall.
I
I
think
will
you
speak
should.
to it.
I talked to Randall about the last vote, and he said you cannot go out there and just advocate without, you gotta say, this is not my opinion.
The
It
council's
wasn't a city
opinion.
council.
It's the council's
But you
position.
can't even do.
Now, what he's saying,
gotta be
John,
careful.
if the council votes to
I don't
push
want,
the
I don't want to
tax-
regress back to that.
Randall said that, so
Okay.
that's Randall, that's
All right.
our legal counsel.
Can we stay on this topic so we can make a decision as to what we're going to do?
I wish they'd also investigate or treasure somebody to do polling. And if we can pay for it without it being a campaign, I think we should check into that, see how much it would cost.
Okay. Can we do that, Kim? All right.
Okay, I'm checking into it.
Not to muddy the water, but the ordinance also reflects that we're to establish a group of 7. How, we need to do that. How do they relate to the group of 15? So, I mean, it could be some of the same people, obviously.
Well, one problem is that we cannot have, I'm not sure if, it seems like to me it's a little precarious because we are saying, you know, they have to be careful because now there's city appointed people being advocates for this, right? I mean, that's my,
No,
that's one of the reasons why I went with this private group.
You're basically staffing out what the priorities of the projects would be.
Okay, well-
And overseeing that the projects get done.
Okay, well, that'd be after.
Kind of the same thing.
That'd be after the
that
fact.
we were saying that Kim was saying now.
That's after the fact, then, Steve.
How does this group, this private group, publicly oversee a council to get this done?
We're mixing up
No.
with Lauren
Yeah,
here.
it wouldn't be.
This group of 17 existed on their own and prompted us to make this ordinance. We have not appointed them yet.
Yeah, the appointment would be a part of the ordinance.
We have not
So the
appointed.
7 are the ones that are
The
going to
7 will be the ones that do that.
They
And
have
that
no
was-
oversight.
But, you know, those people were, that's the way they were able to meet in private with a closed door and not worry about open meeting act issues and the whole thing, because they were not a public body. As soon as we appoint them, they're a public body, they're subject to agenda and everything. That's the drawback that they have to do, to deal with.
Right. But the ordinance also says that this group.
Once we are campaigning at that time, that's when we would go probably with the 7-member. Once we move past this and move to it before the election or right after the election, and when.
Yeah, the 7 after we pass it,
If
right?
we pass it, it becomes, that's when we want it.
Actually, we've already passed
Already passed
the
the.
ordinance to appoint them, we just haven't done it.
But their job starts after if we get the money. That's when their job starts,
Well,
from what I understand.
recommend projects to the city council for approval.
Well, it's already been recommended. Their job's already been
They
done.
did this unofficially, this whole thing started unofficially. This is the people rising grassroots and telling you what they want. And they're trying to ignore it, so.
No, we're not ignoring
I think
it.
we're trying to ignore.
No, I don't see that.
Just because we're not running, let's go through this on the ballot with, you know, and just do this, that's not ignoring it. That is, I think we're all kind of, you know, worried about, this is Guthrie, Oklahoma, we all love it, but people are not very pro-tax, and so we got to be very careful. We have a strong no campaign, as Jeff mentioned, we got to have a stronger yes campaign, and that's what I'm worried about. And I've seen too many votes go down in Guthrie where we have the no campaign just totally knock out the yes campaign because they're either not organized. Really, the two is just not organization, lack of organization on the yes side. That's what I'm worried about. So that's why, Chris, I just wrote a word about that because we just need a strong yes campaign. And I'll do my part as much as I can.
The Citizens Rate and Fee Committee, they've mentioned it quite a few times, the last time we had the sales tax vote, that committee was leading the charge, as well as some citizens and staff who was holding, putting the information together for, you know, educational purposes. But what they were more concerned about is that there was not a strong yes from the council. They want more council participation.
Well, I think that goes into what Z was talking about. We need real clarification that if we as a body say, let's do this tax, whatever it is, and this is what we're going for, it's kind of insane that we can't discuss it. I mean, that's just my opinion.
And it was already been discussed before.
And I
these guys.
didn't sign up for that.
Are the
You know, whatsoever.
Yeah, these guys are new to it, so they need to.
That's not what I signed up for, if that's the case.
The question that Larry asked, how do we come up with a 4-3 vote to?
No, I'm saying that a 4-3 vote does not give confidence to the community.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everybody needs to be on the same thing, you know, all vote unanimously, although it certainly would help. It sends a very strong message, but so does a 4-3 vote. Because that plays in the hands of the no folks.
And that's why we all have to be comfortable with this and feel like it's gonna go
Well,
forward
that
in a
was-
positive way.
But by the same token, once clarification is done on the entirety of this thing, and it's a unanimous
It's a
vote,
unanimous
that'll bring the people together.
Yeah,
Once it's
that,
But if we can't talk about it, again, that's ludicrous in my mind.
We can though. We should.
Well, but we're told we can't.
It says there we should.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree violently with it. Okay, but I'm telling you what, attorney, what Randall said before and what Serena said.
folks, where are we?
Well, I think that if we had to pick a half a dozen of these, which would they be? You know, right at this point, we got 20 things on the list. If you were to have to really prioritize and give half of them, what would they be?
I thought that we were exploring whether technically we can hire a assistants, a professional group, number one. Number two, I thought that we had said that we were going to try doing this polling. What was the Survey Monkey to? I don't know.
It's really good, actually. It's easy too.
We were going to try to use the Survey Monkey to see if that
One of the most important.
they gave
Yeah,
more credence to
right.
to this listing, and to use that to make a smaller group of projects that we would use as a part of our marketing, sales, whatever you want to call it, our yes vote campaign.
And we formed this
That's where I
group.
thought we were.
So, but let me ask you, and I think that you're right in that you thought that's where we were. Okay. And you're absolutely right in that. But, you know, real quick before we move on, I want to talk about the ladder truck for a minute. Okay, because why is this on here?
Capital improvement.
Why is the ladder truck on this list?
The one that we have is almost out of commission.
No, I understand that. Why is it on a tax?
Because it's a fire.
All right, let me back up further. Can we afford a monthly payment on a ladder truck right now?
No.
We cannot, no way.
No.
Absolutely not.
We would
Okay,
have-
so if
would
we don't-
have to-
so if we don't
I take
pass-
it back. We would have to take from somewhere and move it over.
So there is a way.
Yeah,
We
would
close
have
the
to stop
library.
funding.
Without closing the
No,
library.
that's what she's telling you.
Are you telling me that you have to
By
close the library to fund a ladder truck?
We have to shut something down to be able to do it.
If that's where we would take it from, yes.
So let me ask you this, if a ladder truck is so critical in our community, which I believe that it is personally, that doesn't mean that I'm right, okay? And in the event that this tax fails, where are we gonna get the money for the ladder truck?
That's a good question, but that's what.
So why is it on here is my original question. If it's that key and core to infrastructure, then why are we relying on a tax to pay for something that's critical?
So you don't have to shut down the library.
I don't know that she never answered if we had to shut down the
But
library.
she said she's gonna have to shut something down. Something's gotta
We
give
would have to
to be
stop
able to
funding
pay.
something
Something you
in order to
can't.
make it happen.
That's the point.
But
That's what I'm saying.
you'd have to
It
stop
could be-
funding something
it
with
could be-
human resources, or
Yeah, it could be that we cut street taxes.
Where's
that
that
you
money?
what?
We cut out street taxes. We moved that money to buy a fire truck. Close the library. I mean, we're gonna have to stop funding something that's gonna cost about $120,000 a year to make it payment.
Well,
as things stand today, where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And why are you talking about that?
So you're saying, what you're saying is I can't go through the budget and find $6,000 a month without shutting anything down.
A ladder truck is actually $1 million, and they're only paying for half of it, right, with 500,000.
Right, well, they're actually showing it, 100,000 a year for 15 years.
Right, but they can only go because it's sunset and it's only 500. So
Right.
the city council would have an additional $500 to have to come up with that,
Right,
plus interest. Pay for the rest of the $1 million.
yeah, so, exactly.
Okay.
unless it was.
But are you saying, but I guess where we're going with this, since we're coming into budget time anyway, okay, are you saying that some people that are used to dealing with budgets couldn't perhaps get into the budget and find $6,000 a month of revenue to pay for a ladder truck?
Brian?
Without cutting the library or streets or any of that?
Our budget is so tight right now, I've never seen such a tight budget.
Again, I'm just asking them because she deals with the budget,
That's where we're at.
so it can't be found.
I got a slightly different question. Why is sunset for 5? And we could have a sunset for 7. Because that, that would be more money. What if we do something like for 7 or
Why did you pick
8?
5?
I think 5 kind of gives the council enough time to get projects moving, and then you get a trust with the community. You know, people feel more confident in a short amount of time and then a long period of
And
time.
they're gonna trust it. It's
Then we can
similar-
renew it.
was
Just like the
similar
MAPS
how-
project, it just continues to
I'm
build
saying
momentum.
7, that's not
Well,
that
it's
much
similar
longer.
to how Oklahoma City did theirs. It's kind of, in around.
Is there a 5?
Well, what was there? It's about 5 or
I
6?
thought there was like 10.
No, it's never that.
No, it wasn't, yeah.
Like 5 or 6, I think, and of course, they've got 10,000 times to be able to draw from, but the whole deal was, I like what they were coming up with and the solutions that they've come up with. And if we get the trust of the people, then we can go back in like 3 years and say, hey, look, we've got to pay for this new fire truck that we've got to have. I don't want to spend $300,000-$400,000 to fix this fire truck when it's not worth it. Fire truck's worth, Chief, what's a fire truck worth? 40,000, is what you told me that one day?
Not right now.
No, yeah.
That's if it was fully functional.
Yeah, and it's not even, I don't even think, it's out of service, right? And it, okay, we're out of service right now. So if we get a fire now in downtown Guthrie, that's the sad part, but somebody, I mean, I don't think anybody will die. Cross my fingers, hope they don't. But we can't even reach the top of anything now to fight fires. And I sure don't want firemen trying to climb up the side of a ladder on some of these older homes that they can collapse and fall in.
So hence my exact point. In the event a tax that we can't predict, we don't have a crystal ball.
Well, I know.
We don't know if a tax is going to pass or not. We want it to, we hope it does. Okay?
Here's-
But if it doesn't, how are we going to fund it?
Here's the thing about-
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
I mean, this is just something that, it hasn't been talked about, well, we'll talk about with staff. It'll be a safety, a public safety fee on everybody's utility bill.
Thank you.
$2.25.
There you go.
Right, and I don't think.
There's a way to do it without cut.
Yeah, it's a subject that everybody hates, we're gonna do it again.
Yeah, this comes back,
But-
this comes back around to
But it could
me.
be also an incentive, if we do that, if that's something that council wants to do, is when the sales tax does come around, that conversation does come around, if passed, that fee could be removed. You know, it's just, I mean, that's totally up to you, but it would be one way to maybe, because we're putting it on, we have about, what, 4,000 customers? So those 4,000 customers are paying for our ladder truck. When, and that, I will be paying for a ladder truck that La Quinta or,
That you and I will never use.
that we'll never use, yes, exactly.
Exactly.
And they're paying the same $2.25 fee that I'm
It's
paying.
$2.25, not $7.
Okay, now here's the thing, we come back to on that, and I don't keep dragging this, but this is gonna get out of hand, guys, listen to this. If we go and add that and slap it on there, you know who's gonna start griping immediately? It's our 3 people that don't like what we got now, because they think that $7.50 needs to be returned back to the taxpayers now for the water. And I understand that, I don't want my $7.50 back, whatever, how many months it was. Like-
So there is a fallback is the bottom.
Yeah.
Right,
There is an alternative.
you know, and I don't particularly, I don't think anybody wants that, I mean,
Because I think that fire truck could be the crown jewel of a yes campaign,
I do too.
Okay.
the headliner of it,
We've
so to
got,
speak.
we've got a few action things that have to happen to get us some answers, to maybe clarify some of the options that we have. And can we get that by the time for our next council?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Can we get clarification of the legality and the approximate cost going to the source that the school used or the foundation, whatever?
The strategy, the company, the
Foundation.
campaign company, I guess.
To
Dating strategies.
give
I
us
think
an
they use.
idea of cost, and can we start to work on what?
Hey, Kim, you talk to Mike Simpson about the company contact for the
Survey.
Mike Simpson.
But I want to know an answer to Steve's question too, or did you already bring that up? About if, once we gain, if the council signs off on this thing, can we discuss the tax?
I've asked already,
Okay.
so I'll have that soon.
So we'll get a clarification on that. from the ethics.
That's what you meant by legalize.
I want to point one other thing out about this group of 17 people.
Yes.
There's a guy on there named Gary Good, who was instrumental in the MAPS program in Oklahoma City. And some of his insight is the reason he went on this group, is to tell them how that went about. So there is some real good corporate knowledge there in that group, and I'm sure he shared that with you guys. No. Were you aware of that? That he probably didn't toot his horn?
Yeah, very good.
He was very involved with the MAPS program in Oklahoma City, and that's the reason.
I think he gave more information to Serena, background information that came to our group.
So he's a wealth of knowledge, so.
Okay, so are we clear on the next steps that we want to take? And then hopefully we'll have this, assuming we can get those answers and develop some of our survey instruments and to get it on our next agenda. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? All right.